everybody. Welcome back to Crafting and Crime Daily. I'm your host, Rebecca, and I craft while I talk to you about recapping of live trials. The next trial that is starting this week, I'm still covering Maya Kowalski versus John Hopkins, but this week starts the trial of Charlie Adelson, good old dentist from South Florida, periodontist from South Florida. What in the world could he have done? Well, I'm going to tell you what he did. Yes. Well, what he is alleged to have done. So they are picking the jury today, so it won't start today. But a lot of you don't remember the coverage I've done on this case. This case has been to trial twice already. This is trial number 3. The first trial was against Sigfredo Garcia and Luis Rivera and Catherine Mambanoa. Now, Luis Rivera took a plea. So Catherine and Sigfredo were on trial. I'm going to tell you who all these people are. That trial ended with Sigfredo getting life in prison without the possibility of parole for his role in the death of Dan Markel, the FSU law professor. The second trial was Catherine Mambanoa, because the first trial, mistrial, the jury couldn't make a decision. So they had to go back and try her again. So they try her again, they get a conviction. 1 week before that trial started, they arrested Charles Adelson. Now that's the trial we're covering now. And there could be a fourth trial coming down the pike. Yes. So a lot of players in this case. So I'm going to start out by telling you the story. But first, let's go over a little crafting stuff, shall we? I know you got to sit through the crafting. Then you get the crime. So I finished another panel to my Grafgan that I was working on over the weekend. This is the Halloween one. Okay. Girl gnome, she's got her red braids, her pumpkin. Yeah, so we're going to add that one in with the other 14. So I've got 15 panels done. And I still have to do Thanksgiving, Christmas, and my birthday. So at least 3 more panels. 18. I can't do math. Never mind. I was trying to figure it out, but I'll figure it out some other time. Then I got my painting out yesterday because, oh my gosh, you got to watch the live from yesterday. If you like blinging your painting, Alyssa, the owner of Diamond Painting Drills, I am an affiliate with them. The link to her shop is down in the description. If you follow that link and you happen to make a purchase, yes, I get a small commission, which I use to buy more special drills. Yeah. So she was on the show yesterday, and she's doing this exact same painting, this pumpkin painting, but she showed us the way she's doing it, and she actually said, this painting just lends itself to creativity. You could just do so much with this negative space here, and the positive space. Just have to put the crystals in. You could put bars and cubes, and so I did put some bars in here based on her suggestion, and then I've got cubes going on down here. But then I went back and added these little bats. Are they not the best? I decided, okay, first I wasn't going to do anything with all this negative space, but then I decided I'm going to put the bats here. And I thought maybe up here I might even put like a witch hat. Not sure, but I do like the little bats. Anyway, so I am working on that while we talk about the FSU law professor Dan Markel. Now, Dan Markel, he's a gentleman that grew up in Canada. To his parents, Ruth Markel and her husband. Ruth, God bless her, she's been a trooper during all of this. His mother. Anyway, he grows up in Canada. His dream is he's going to go to Harvard and become a famous lawyer. So sure enough, he goes to Harvard. Afterwards, he takes a job in Washington, D.C. Then, he's Jewish. He goes on a site called JDate, and this is a matchmaking site for Jewish individuals. And he meets a woman by the name of Wendy Adelson. She is from South Florida, and she is attending law school at the University of Miami. They hit it off. They become fast friends. Fast forward, they get married. They have two little beautiful boys, and he takes a job. He's offered a professorship. Is that what they call them? Professorship? Anyway, he's offered a teaching position at Florida State University in Tallahassee, Florida. We just love Florida, don't we? So we're doing the Kowalski. I'm still doing the Kowalski case, which is down in Sarasota. We're on the West Coast now, and we're going to head up I-75, and we're going to go up to Tallahassee, which is like in the what do they call that neck of Florida? The little part that goes like this, Tallahassee, right there. That's where we're at. So they're trying to pick a jury today in the latest trial to come out of this murder. And good luck, because I don't think there's a citizen in Tallahassee that doesn't know about the murder of Dan Markel. So Wendy and Dan, Dan takes this position in Tallahassee, so they moved to Tallahassee. She gets a job at FSU as well. She's working in immigration, I think. She was working in human trafficking, doing something with human trafficking as a lawyer, and they're living the life. They live in this gorgeous neighborhood in Tallahassee. And fast forward, he is just in his heyday. He's traveling all over the country, giving speeches. He was specialized in criminal law, and he was a proponent of punishment versus reform. Let's put it that way. He believed that criminals should be punished. So he would go around and do all these speeches. So he was up in New York and on a trip, and he gets back from New York. Oh, actually, he gets a call while he's in New York from Wendy, and Wendy says, "I want a divorce." Oh, okay. So he flies home. He gets into his house. It sounds a little empty in the house, and he starts looking around. Everything's gone. Furniture's gone. Kids' room's empty. He goes into his bedroom, their bedroom, and the bed's still there. And on the bed are the divorce papers. She's gone. She took the two boys and left. Now, her family, the Adelson family, is from South Florida. The father owns a dental practice in Coral Springs. Coral Springs is about an hour north of Miami. That's where his practice is. It's where Mickey Sunshine lives, if you must know. Mickey. Yeah, so Coral Springs, which is in Broward County, same as Fort Lauderdale. Fort Lauderdale's kind of like right here, and you just have to drive 15, 20 minutes west, and you'll hit Coral Springs, or northwest, I should say. Not far. It's all in the same county. So that's where his practice is. His wife used to be a school teacher, and she started to help him out in the practice. And then his son, they have three children. The oldest son is not in the picture. Hi, baby. What's going on? Hi. Hi. Charles Adelson is the middle son. He becomes a periodontist and eventually buys his father's practice. Hi. Hi. Now, what he does is because he's a specialist, he actually goes to several different dental practices to do what it is he does. He has to do the root canals. This is the guy you don't want to meet at the dentist's office. Yeah, the root canal word. Yeah, the R word. This is him. This is what he does. But he buys dad's practice, so he's actually the owner. And then the baby of the family is Wendy, who, married Dan Markel and is now asking him for a divorce. So they wanted her, hey, come to South Florida. She's like, yeah, I would love to. She couldn't. She starts dating this guy named Jeff. They go on, they get a divorce, but they each represented themselves in the divorce, and the motions are flying back and forth. These are two attorneys. He did this, she did this, she wants this, he wants this, boom, 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 boom. She wanted to take her kids to South Florida. He goes in front of the judge and he says, nope, they're my kids. And the judge agrees with him. No, you cannot remove those kids from this county until one of them turns 18. Then he can go where he wants to go. But no, you're not going to South Florida with those boys. she is not happy about this decision. And she makes it known that she's not happy about this decision. Yes. So on July 18th, now they're divorced, but they're still going back and forth about custody, who can do what, when and where. Dan has the kids this morning. The two boys are with him. July 18th, he takes them, feeds them breakfast, takes them to daycare, drops them off at daycare. Then he goes to the gym, does his workout at the gym, and then uh, travels home. When he gets home, he pulls into the driveway. A car pulls into. I can't talk today. Let me have a sip of coffee. Car pulls into the driveway behind him. He's on the phone, yik yakking to somebody, and yik yakking. What the heck word is that? Uh, anyway, Sigfredo Garcia, who's in the car with Luis Rivera. Luis stays in the car. Sigfredo gets out of the car with a weapon, goes up to the side of Dan Markel's car. Dan Markel looks, he's got the window rolled down because he sees them coming, and he doesn't know what they want. So he rolls the window down. He's on the face. He's like, hold on, there's somebody here, and he looks over and the guy shoots him. Sigfredo shoots him twice in the head. Then Sigfredo gets back in his car and he and Luis, they drive away. Who the heck are they? Who are they? To Dan Markel. We don't know. I do. I know now, but I haven't told you yet. Anyway, so the neighbor who's across the street, he's peeking through the blinds, and he sees Dan pull into the driveway. He sees a car uh, behind Dan in the driveway. Then he could describe the car. He said it was a Prius. He described the color. It's a Toyota Prius. But he heard a loud noise. He sees the Prius back up and drive away. So he thinks, oh, well, Dan's going to get out of the car and go in the house. So he waits, and then a few minutes later, he looks again, and Dan's still in the car. So he says, let me go over there and see if he's okay. So he goes over there. Well, he didn't have to knock. He goes and he sees Dan Markel has been shot. So he calls 911, and the whole first responders, everybody comes. They try to save his life. He lives for about 14 hours. They get him to the hospital. He lives about 14 hours and before he succumbs to his injuries and passes away. Meanwhile, they bring in Wendy Adelson for questioning, and she doesn't know why she's being asked down to the police station. So she goes to the police station, and they leave her in the room, and they come back, and she says, oh my gosh, I just checked my messages. Someone said something happened on Dan's street. Is everything okay? And they're like, no ma'am, Dan was shot in the head twice, and he's not expected to survive. So then she boo-hoos, and she starts crying and sobbing uncontrollably for about a minute. And then she starts talking. She goes, I don't know who, maybe somebody that was mad at him for divorcing me, and maybe they did it. Who would have done this? Boo hoo hoo hoo. And then while she's sitting there talking to this police officer, she tells him, my brother, where were you this morning? Well, I was home waiting for the TV repairman to come over. My TV wasn't working right. My brother had just bought me this TV not long ago. It was a present from my brother, Charlie. And he laughed and kidded it and said, it was cheaper than hiring a hitman. This is your divorce present. So here you go. What? Hitman? Yeah. So she leaves that police station that day, all broken up about her ex-husband being murdered, and gets in her car with her boys, goes to South Florida, never comes back to Tallahassee, except for last year when she had to appear at the trial. She's had to appear at both trials, the two trials that have already occurred in this case. She did have to go back to Tallahassee, and she had to testify. But she's never interviewed again without a lawyer, and she doesn't go back to Tallahassee voluntarily without a subpoena. And then when she did go for those 2 trials, they gave her qualified immunity to testify. Now, what does that mean? That means that anything you say during your testimony on the stand cannot be used against you if we ever decide to try you or, or charge you with an offense. So she's like, I didn't do anything. I'll take the immunity. All right. So they're trying to figure out who in the world killed this guy. So they know that he went to the gym. So they pull out some surveillance footage of the gym and they're watching the parking lot and they see this car that's following him around, following, circling the parking lot and following his car around. And they park while he goes in. And then when he comes out, they, start up the engine again and they follow him out of the parking lot. And this happens to match the description of the vehicle that the neighbor gave the police, that it is a Toyota Prius. So they start looking into this car and they find out that it was rented by either Sigfredo or Lewis. I don't recall which one rented the car, but they find out that it was rented by one of these 2 guys. Then they do a tower dump. What that means is they find out the cell phone towers that are around that gym, and they start pulling. They pull, so they get all the phone calls made, and it's huge. It's a huge task. It takes these police 2 years to unravel this mystery, because going through this tower dump is no small task, and they want to figure out, because they know from running the license plate that this was a car that was rented in South Florida. They do know that. So they pull all kinds of surveillance footage from all over the city of Tallahassee, from standalone surveillance cameras, from buses, everywhere, and they piece together where this Prius came and went during the time it was in Tallahassee. And they figure out that, this is the person or persons who murdered Dan Markel. Then, once they get a good shot of the vehicle, they see that there is a SunPass transponder in the front of this Toyota Prius. So SunPass is what you use when you're getting on the turnpike in Florida, so you can pay your tolls electronically. So they see that there's a SunPass in there, so they subpoena the SunPass records. Now, these are also voluminous. What have you got for? They run it by name, they run it by tag number, they run it by vehicle, all different kinds of ways. Anyway, it comes back to this Sigfredo Garcia and Luis Rivera. Yes. Then I need more coffee. I got to see where I'm going with this story. Hold on. So through a lot of legwork, a lot of hard investigation, going through these records, these cell phone records, they the cell phone tower dump. They finally figure out that there are some South Florida phones on those records that come back to Sigfredo Garcia and Luis Rivera. So they've got phone records from them, and then they pull those individual phone records and they run those, and those come back to, who did they call during before or after the murder? They called a woman by the name of Catherine Magbanowa. So now they're looking at this Catherine Magbanowa. Who's she? Then through the SunPass records, they figure out their path of travel before and after the murder. So they know that they left South Florida, traveled up the turnpike, and get to Tallahassee. Then after the murders, they travel back. So they've got their path of travel. They stop at a bank. They got surveillance footage from the bank because they took out some money from an ATM. So there was footage of that. Then they later on They all come into some money, and Sigfredo and Louis are buying motorcycles, and Catherine Magbanoa has gone to get a boob job, and they've all come into some cash somehow. Then they start looking into Catherine Magbanoa, and they find out that she has been dating. First of all, she is the baby mama of Sigfredo Garcia's children. So she's raising Sigfredo's kids. They claim that they are married. They're not really married, but they claim that they're married. However, they're not together. Yeah, he comes over to see the kids and stuff, to visit the kids, but they're not together. Sigfredo and Louis are members of a, a gang called the Latin Kings. That's going to come into play here. They find out Catherine has been dating Charles Adelson, the periodontist, who is the brother of Wendy, who was divorced from Dan Markel. What? So the plot thickens. So then we find out that they're dating, and he hires her to work at his dental practice. But if you talk to anybody at the dental practice, nobody knows who she is. She doesn't actually go into the office. So whatever it was she was hired to do, she does from her own home. But Charles Adelson, Charles and Wendy's mom, is writing Catherine Magbanoa checks every 2 weeks. Paychecks every 2 weeks. Or God knows what. We don't know what she was doing. Anyway, so it was alleged and proved at trial that Charles and Catherine hired Sigfredo, who hired Louis, because they always traveled together, Sigfredo and Louis, to go up and kill Dan Markel as a favor to Wendy, maybe a divorce present. He hired the hitman. Yeah. So we've had 3 trials. The first trial was for Sigfredo Garcia and Catherine Magbanoa for the death of Dan Markel. He gets, he's found guilty. He is sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. Catherine, the jury could not make a decision on Catherine. They could not reach a verdict, so there was a mistrial declared. So then we get a second trial several months later. Now, Catherine Magbanoa has these small children at home, or she did at the time, and she's been in prison as of the second trial, 6 years. She's been in prison because she can't afford bail, awaiting trial, her second trial. And the state, they keep offering her deals. Hey, if you spill everything you know about the Adelsons family, we'll cut you a deal. She doesn't do it. She just maintains that she doesn't have anything to do with it, and she's gonna roll her dice at the second trial. So she gets to the trial, and this time she gets convicted of conspiracy to commit murder. But 1 week before her second trial starts, they arrest Charles Adelson. Because while they were putting together the case against Catherine, they knew they had to come up with a stronger case than the first time they tried her because the jury couldn't reach a decision. So they found footage of Charles Adelson and Catherine Magbanoa at this restaurant in South Florida. But they had to hire experts to weed out all the restaurant noise so you could hear what they were saying. It was, if you just watched it straight up the video, you could not hear what they were saying. And there were cops in there with microphones. That's how they got this footage. So there's so much more to this that I'm just scratching the surface here, people. As this case progresses, I'll get into more detail. But suffice it to say that they were able to clean this tape up enough that they could get a transcript of it. The jury could read what was being said between Charles and Catherine, and then Catherine was convicted. because they were talking about covering up the murder. So Charles is arrested. He cannot. He's not offered a bond. He's been in jail now for over a year, waiting for his trial. Now, what happened to Luis Rivera? Luis Rivera took a plea in exchange for his testimony that put Sigfredo away, and his testimony against Catherine, which obviously didn't work because the first trial they didn't find anything that Catherine had done wrong. Anyway, he was already in jail by the time police spent 2 years unraveling this mystery. Luis Rivera, who's involved with this gang, the Latin Kings, he gets thrown in jail for racketeering. He gets a 12-year sentence for racketeering, which has to do with this gang. So while he's in jail, they approach him with a plea deal for the murder of Dan Markel in exchange for his testimony against Catherine and Sigfredo. So he takes the deal, and the deal is, in exchange for his testimony, he's going to get a 19-year sentence for the murder of Dan Markel to run concurrent with the 12-year sentence he was already serving. So he only got an additional 7 years for the murder of Dan Markel. And he'll be out. He might even be out already. Who knows? He'll be out in no time. He will. I'm pretty sure he's still in jail, but he ain't going to be there forever. Not like his buddy Sigfredo. I hope they don't run into each other at the jail. Anyway. So Catherine gets convicted. She gets life without the possibility of parole. And later on, we hear rumors that she has decided at this point that she's going to turn state's evidence against Charlie Adelson. She's going to be singing like a canary because now she's realized, holy crap, I got life in prison. She thought she was going to get away with this. She didn't. So I expect that she will take the stand during this trial and testify against Charles Adelson. But the bigger question is, what about Wendy and her parents? Now, her parents have been subpoenaed to testify, and they had notified the court that their plan was that they were going to take the stand and plead the fifth. In other words, every question that would come their way, they're going to say, I can't answer, I'm pleading the Fifth Amendment, which is your right to silence, because anything you say might be used against you. So they weren't offered immunity, but so the judge ordered, no, you have to answer these questions. You cannot come in here and plead the fifth. You have to answer the questions. So it's going to be interesting. I was kind of hoping that, by the time this trial got underway, the parents and Wendy would have been implicated and in jail by now, but not yet. I think it's coming. I think it's coming down the pike. There's a lot more that went into this investigation where they bugged the phones at the dental practice. They bugged the Adelson's phones. So you hear phone conversations between Charles and his mother and Charles and his girlfriends. And then you're going to hear the girlfriends of Charles testify about how he handled cash, and he had cash stored around his house. This case is so interesting. So interesting. And Wendy, she's a piece of work, this woman. She returns, after she left, that the morning that Dan is killed, and she's told that he was murdered, and she leaves Tallahassee and goes back to South Florida. She takes those boys, she changes their name from Markel to Adelson because she didn't want them, she was afraid they were going to get teased at school, because everybody knows that, Dan Markel was murdered. I think they'd be teased at school because everybody knows that the Adelson family is behind the Markel murders. But, whatever. Then Dan Markel's mom, Ruth Markel, she was not allowed visitation by oh God, I'm getting all the play. But Wendy wouldn't allow grandma to see her kids. So she started pounding the pavement in Tallahassee and talking to legislators about putting into practice a law that says grandparents cannot be, you have to have some rights. Because up to this point, grandparents in Florida had no right to see their children. You're just the grandma. So after the legislation went through, then she got visitation rights. Yeah. But she was instrumental in making sure that grandparents in the state of Florida do maintain the right to see their grandchildren. Yeah. So some good came out of the whole darn thing. And I've just done in 30 minutes what I probably should have taken hours and hours to detail for you. But as this trial progresses and as different witnesses take the stand, I think because it's the same prosecutor. Her name's Georgia. She did the first case, second case. She's doing the third case, and she's really good. So as she goes through the witnesses, the story will start to piece itself together. And what she does, she has, at least for the first two trials, she had a big board and she has all these pictures of all the players on the board in a big circle because it's all circular. You know, Mom Adelson, Dad Adelson, Charles Adelson, Wendy Adelson, Catherine, Sigfredo, Louis. I mean, all of these people involved in this murder. Yeah. Which apparently was a divorce present. Yeah. And we're going to also hear from the boyfriend of Wendy Adelson while she was still up in Tallahassee with her boys. You know, after they got divorced, she's still living up there because the judge said she couldn't move. She's dating this guy that she tried to set up for the murder. Yeah. She tried to get him pinned for the murder. So more on that. It's an interesting case. There's got to be a book. Somebody must have written a book about this. I'm sure. Anyway, so they're picking a jury right now. So today I'm going to listen to Kowalski testimony all day. So tomorrow will be a Maya Kowalski testimony recap day. Today was the FSU law professor Dan Markel. Okay, guys, that's the show for today. I had game night last night, and of course, the battery was dead on the Switch. The other night when my electricity went out, something weird happened with everything over here. And so apparently my Switch battery was dead. It wouldn't come on. So I had to quickly switch to the Xbox for game night. Because I have a bunch of games on the Xbox, which is, right here. So I'm I'm trying to hook it all up. Everybody's waiting patiently. And so I said, oh, I got to go to the bedroom and get the controller, the controller. So then I proceed to trip over the cord, knock everything over. Then one of my subscribers, she's watching. She's pulling a thing of cranberry juice. She picks up this huge thing of cranberry juice and proceeds to drop it on her toe and break her toe. So now I'm responsible for someone's broken toe, in addition to my own. So now and no, you can't watch it. I've deleted that footage because it was horribly embarrassing. So I come back. I'm trying to compose myself, get it all hooked up. We were able to play some Hogwarts Legacy. So next week, we're going to start again with the Xbox. We'll go back to Hogwarts and we'll play around a little bit more in Hogwarts. It's fun little game, Hogwarts Legacy. Anyway, it's Monday. Have a great Monday. If you are a creator, I just want to tell you, we do, myself and Crafts with Crashley. She and I, along with a woman named Crystal, put together what we call the Christmas premieres. We get a bunch of crafting creators, and they videotape a premiere. A premiere is something that's recorded ahead of time, and it'll run. All these premieres will run like Christmas Eve and Christmas day and night, 24, 48 hours straight. You'll just have one creator after another, but they won't be live. It'll be premieres that they've recorded so that they can be with their families. And then if you're alone at home, you can watch the premieres of your favorite creators. So if you're a creator and you happen to watch this and you want to be involved in the premieres this year, just direct message me and let me know, and I'll send you the registration form for that. And we'll tell you a little bit more about how to put that together. So if you're interested, let me know. Listen, we got some great creators out of last year's premiere. You know, people that were not well known in the community that are now very, very popular in the community. So let me know if you want to participate. All right, guys, I love you all, and I will see you in tomorrow's show. Have a great day. Bye.